Wireless technology. First, overview of this wireless technology. Now, transmitting a signal using the typical 802.11 specification works a lot like it does with the basic Ethernet hub. So basically, this wireless technology works like a hub. So they are both two-way form of communication, and they both uses the same frequency to transmit and receive, and are often offered to as half duplex. Wireless LANs, it is also called WLANs, use radio frequency RFs that are radiated into the air from an antenna that creates radio waves, and these waves can be absorbed, refracted or reflected by walls, water and metal surfaces, resulting in low signal strength. So because of this vulnerability to surrounding environment factors, it's pretty apparent that wireless will never offer us the same robustness as the wired network can. But that still doesn't mean we are not going to run wireless. We can increase the transmitting power and gain a greater transmitting distance, but doing so can create some nasty distortions, so it has to be done carefully. By using higher frequencies, we can attain higher data rates, but that is unfortunately at the cost of decreased transmitting distance. And if we use lower frequency, we get a transmit greater distance but a lower data rates. So basically, these wireless networks are good. It is based on wireless radio waves, and it is good, but it is not able to give the same robustness like we have a wired networks. But still we can use it. It is impacted by the environmental factors like walls, waters, metal surfaces, but still we can increase the frequency so that we can get amount of speed. But when you increase the frequencies, you have to decrease the distance. As the frequency increase, it cannot travel too much distance. Low frequencies can travel too much distances, but it will not give you more speed, more data rate. Now, VLANs transmit over radio frequency, so they are regulated by the same types of laws used to govern things like AM and FM radios. So we know that AM and FM radios are also there, and they are also using the radio waves and microwaves, radio waves. So they are also, our wireless network is also having the same laws which is governing this AM and FM radios. So it's the Federal Communication Commission, it is called FCC, that regulates the use of wireless LAN devices. And the Institute of Electronic and Electronic Engineers takes it from there and creates standards based on what frequency the FCC releases for public use. So FCC's job is to regulate the frequencies is available to use for the public, and based upon that, IEEE create the standards that how we can use this and what are the uses we can use for that available frequencies. So the FCC has released 3 unlicensed bands for public use. Unlicensed, that means for use of these bands we don't have to get the license. Mostly these radio waves are used by lots of different things also, like Army is also using the radio waves to communicate. These FMs, these AMs also using the same thing. The mobile communications, mobile companies, they are also using it. So some of the frequencies are not free. You have to take the license for it. So FCC has released these free frequencies that you can use, anybody can use, and that is what 1900 megahertz, 2.4 gigahertz, 5.7 gigahertz. So these are the frequencies available for use to public. Now upon those frequencies available, IEEE has created these standards. So this 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz bands are referred to as the industrial, scientific and medical bands. that is in short ISM. So it is also called ISM bands. And the 5 gigahertz band is known as the unlicensed National Information Infrastructure band, that is in short UNII. So to deploy this wireless outside of the 3 public bands, you need to get a specific license from the FCC to do so. So these are the free bands, and if you want to use other than these bands, then you have to get the license from FCC. Once the FCC opened the 3 frequency ranges for public use, it was not available, but now it is available. So many manufacturers were able to start offering myriad products that flooded the market, with 802.11b and G being the most widely used wireless network found today. So the Wi-Fi Alliance grants certification for interoperability among 802.11 products offered by various vendors. So different vendors, you can see the different vendors is creating these wireless devices, but they are all following the same standard 802.11 set by the IEEE. So that they can do what? We can interoperability. You can have interoperability. So the devices from one vendor can easily communicate with the devices of other vendors. So for that, this IEEE 802.11 was the first original standardized WLAN at 1 and 2 Mbps. So this is the base of the all standard of Wi-Fi created by wireless were created by the IEEE, which is having the speed of 1 to 2 Mbps, and it runs in the 2.4 gigahertz radio frequency and was ratified in 1997. But even though we didn't see many products pop up until around 1999, when 802.11b was introduced. So first was 802.11, but till then it was actually released on 1997, but till that time we don't have seen much products. But after 99 we start seeing more of the products of these wireless when the 802.11b was introduced. Now before using the wireless network, we should know factors which is affecting the wireless signals. Because wireless signals travel through the atmosphere, they are susceptible to different type of interference than standard wired network. Interference weakens the wireless signals, and therefore is an important consideration when working with the wireless networking. So these are the factors cause the interference. First, physical objects. Physical objects like trees, machineries, buildings and other physical structures are some of the most common sources of interference. Then radio frequency interference. These wireless technologies such as 802.11b and G uses a radio frequency range of 2.4 GHz, and so do many other devices such as cordless phones, microwaves and so on. And devices that share the channel can cause noise and weaken the signals. So if you are using the wireless technology, wireless network, it is using the same 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which is also used by most of the other devices. These phones, microwaves, even wireless headphones we use, those also use some of those also use the same frequency. And if you are having this, then you can have a problem of frequency, and then you can get the error and noises and weakness of signals. Then electrical interference is also there. Electrical interference comes from the devices such as computers, refrigerators, fans, lighting fixtures, or any other motorized device which can also generate the electrical field. Then environmental factors are also there. That is, weather condition can have a huge impact on wireless signals integrity. Lightning, for example, can cause electrical interference, and fog can weaken signal as they pass through. Like electricity, lightning can interfere the signals, and also fog because the signals are not able to travel properly under the fog. Now these are the standards of 802.11 IEEE has released. These standards from these standards from this 802.11. The first one is 802.11. It was released first in 1997 and it was working on 2.4 gigahertz radio frequency. The speed it gives is 1 to 2 Mbps only. Now topology, that means which topology it can used. So it can be used in the ad hoc topology and also in the infrastructure topology. Now what is this topology, I will tell you. Then transmission range is up to 20 feet indoors. So it uses indoor to 20 feet range. Now access method, it uses CSMA/CA. Now in wired network, in wired hub network, we use this. The access method is CSMA/CD. That is carrier sense multiple access, collusion detect. And wireless network, it also is like a hub. It also works like a hub. So but it is not having a wire. So it is using the same CSMA, but it uses CA, collusion avoidance. Instead of collusion detection, it uses collusion avoidance. Because it is not having a wired network, so it will not detect after the collusion. So it is not collusion detection. It will try to avoid the collusion before the collusion happens. And that is why it uses CA. So this is 802.11 standard. Then after that we have 802.11a standard, which runs on 5 gigahertz frequency. It can give speed up to 54 Mbps. It can also work ad hoc on infrastructure topology. The range is 25 to 75 feet indoors range. Can be affected by building materials, but indoor it can also affect by the building materials like concrete or metal or whatever. And still it will use the same CSMA/CD. After this 802.11a, we have 802.11b. It works on 2.4 gigahertz. It can give a speed up to 11 Mbps, work on ad hoc and infrastructure topology, and it can give you the speed of up to 150 feet indoors, but it can also be affected by the building material. Same access method. Then 802.11g, 2.4 gigahertz speed frequency, gives 54 Mbps up to speed depending on the environment. It uses the ad hoc infrastructure mode of topology. It can go range of 150 feet, can be affected by the building material using the same access method. Then 802.11n is the latest one. It uses both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. It can give a speed up to 600 Mbps, work with ad hoc and infrastructure, and it can go up to 175 plus feet indoor range, can be affected by building materials. It also uses the same CSMA/CA. Now, wireless access point. Wireless access point is both. It is actually a both transmitter and receiver device used for wireless LAN radio signals. We normally called it as a wireless router, but it is actually what? Access point. An AP typically is a separate network device with a built-in antenna, transmitter and adapter. And APs use the wireless infrastructure network mode to provide a connection point between WLANs and a wired Ethernet LAN. And APs also typically have several ports, giving you a way to expand the network to support additional clients. Basically, we know this AP as a wireless router, which contains the antenna and multiple ports. Multiple ports, within that one we can use it to connect the internet and to wireless. That means wired network to wireless. So if your network is coming from wired, so you connect that into the AP, and then from the AP it can make it wireless network. So basically it is joining the wireless devices to wired network. So depending on the size of the network, one or more APs might be required, and additional APs are used to allow access to more wireless clients and to expand the range of a wireless network. Each AP is limited by the transmission range, the distance a client can be from an AP and still get a usable signal. The actual distance depends on the wireless standards being used and the obstruction and environmental condition between the client and the AP. And it looks like this. Then when we are having the wireless network, so basically it works like a hub. This APs works like a hub because there is no wired network, so it is not a directional network. That means there is no direction to go the data. So it moves the data, it broadcasts the data to everywhere. Because it is not a directional transmission, which is the wired network, so it transmits the data everywhere in the environment. Now for that reason, it is having a problem of security. So we use this wireless network because it is easy to implement, easy to apply, easy to configure, and easy to change also. Instead of that, if suppose you are using the wired network, so setting up the wired network is difficult, not easy, and if you change the environment, if you change the setup, then you have to rewire the everything. So it is difficult. Now in wireless network, you can change any time because there is no wire you have to set, and it is very easy to implement also. And even you can give internet connection to the locations where it is not possible to give wires. Like for you go to some malls and airports where you get the free Wi-Fi network. It is not easy to give the internet network by using the wired. You will get it by the wireless network. So this wireless network makes it very easy to give the internet connection, but it is having a problem for the security because it works like a hub. It sends the data to everywhere, and within the range anyone can get the information, anyone can get the data. So we have wireless security also. So by default this wireless security is non-existent on access point and clients. So the original 802.11 committee just didn't imagine that wireless hosts would one day outnumber the bounded media hosts. But that's truly where we are headed. That is, we have more wireless devices than the wired networks. And also unfortunately, just like with the IPv4 routed protocol, engineers and scientists didn't add security standard with that are robust enough to work in an appropriate environment. So like IPv4, when it was made, it was created, no security things was added. So same as here, it is no added any security there. So we are left with the proprietary solution add-ons to add us in our quest to create the secure wireless network. So now we have because it is not having any inbuilt security, so we are left with some proprietary solutions to solve this problem. Now first, how it is secured. So first we have open access. Now open access, that means there is no security. All Wi-Fi certified wireless LAN products are shipped in open access mode. So whenever you buy any product of wireless for the wireless or wireless, it comes with open access. That is without any security. So without their security features turned on, while open access or no security may be appropriate and acceptable for public hotspots such as office, coffee shops, college campuses, and maybe airports, where we can use open access where there is no required to add the password. Now, it is definitely not an option for an enterprise organization and likely not even adequate for your private home network also. So security needs to be enabled on wireless devices during their installation in enterprise environment. So when you are creating the enterprise environment for the wireless, then what we have to add the security features also, and it may comes up as quite a shock, but some companies actually don't enable any WLAN security features. Till now, most of the enterprises or home users or maybe some organization, they really don't enable the security features. They open it, they leave it as an open access. Maybe they feel like it is easy to access, so they leave it as it is, but it is very dangerous. These companies that do this are exposing their network to tremendous risk, and the reason that the products are shipped with open access is so that any person who knows absolutely nothing about computers can just buy an access point and plug it into their cable or DSL modem, and they are up and running. So because this open access is only because for those users who don't know anything about networking and they just want to use the wireless, so that they can just buy the device, plug it into their network cable, and then they can just use it. This is not for enterprise use. For enterprise use, you have to have a security feature enabled. So wireless network access modes and security factors we have. There is two 802.11 access modes can be used in WLAN. One is ad hoc and other one is infrastructure mode. Now in an ad hoc mode, what happened in an ad hoc mode? This ad hoc mode is based on the independent basic service set, that is called IBSS. In IBSS, client can set up connection directly to other clients without any intermediate AP. This allows you to set up peer-to-peer network connection and is sometimes used in SOHO. The main problem with the ad hoc mode is that it is difficult to secure, since each device you need to connect to will require authentication. This problem in turn creates scalability issues. That means you can connect not more than 2 devices with this ad hoc network. It is like we use this to create to share the data, like we use it in mobile to share the data by using the ShareIt, Zender. So we use this wireless sharing in mobile to connect this to 2 mobile devices, and we share the wireless, we share the data through the wireless. For that we use different softwares like ShareIt. So basically what we are doing, we are creating ad hoc mode where we don't have to have any AP, we don't require any AP. We can directly connect 2 devices and share the data by using the wireless network. Other mode is infrastructure mode. Now this infrastructure mode was designed to deal with the security and scalability issue. And infrastructure mode, wireless clients can communicate with each other albeit via an IP. 2 infrastructure mode implementations are in use, that is BSS, that is basic service set, and ESS, which is extended service set. This BSS mode, clients connect to an AP which allows them to communicate with other clients or LAN based resources. The WLAN is identified by the single SSD, and however each AP requires a unique ID called a basic service set identifier, which is the MAC address of the AP's wireless card, and this mode is commonly used for wireless clients that don't roam, such as PC. Then the other mode is extended service set. In extended service set mode, 2 or more BSS are interconnected to allow for larger roaming distance. To make this as transparent as possible to the client, such as PDAs, laptops or mobile phones, a single SSD is used among all of the APs. Each AP, however, will have a unique BSSD, and it is a model of this one. We can see this image is the example of BSS. Now when we are using BSS or ESS, there is one more thing is important, is coverage area. WLAN coverage area includes the physical area in which the RF radio frequency signals can be sent and received. Two types of WLAN coverage areas coverages are based on the two infrastructure mode implementation, that is BSS and ESS. So we have BSA, that is basic service area, and extended service area, which is ESA. BSA with basic service area, a single area called a cell is used to provide coverage for the WLAN clients and AP. And ESA means it is the multiple cells are used to provide for additional coverage over larger distance or to overcome areas that have or signal interference or degradation when using ESA. Remember that each cell should use a different radio channels. Now the terms BSS and BSA and ESS and ESA can be confusing. So BSS and ESS refers to the building topology, whereas BSA and ESA refers to the actual signal coverage. For example, this is our wireless device. This is our AP. Now this AP is having one BS, basic service set identifier, and that is what it is actually the MAC address of this device. Then it needs one more thing, which is ESS, ESS ID. That is what it is actually the name for this Wi-Fi. So when we do this, when we search for the wireless network in our area, then we see the names of those wireless devices available in our area. Like if I check in my my PC, I click on this wireless, so it shows available networks. So these are the ESS ID. These names which we see, it is actually the ESS ID for those wireless routers. These are the identifier for those routers which is available in this area. So that is what ESS ID. So it needs BSS ID, ESS ID. BSS ID is the MAC address of the device and ESS ID is the name of the device. Now what is BSS? Is the basic service, BSS is the basic service set. So it is the configuration where we have single router and we have in a single area we have devices, laptops, PCs or mobiles, whatever. So they can do what? They can use this AP to connect to the wire network. That is, it is connected to the wired network here from one side, and then in other side it is giving the wireless access. So these devices can use this AP to connect the wired network, or they can use to connect each other through the AP. So this kind of environment is called BSS. Now BSA means the range of this single router. Like the router is having, let's say it is having this range. Depending on the factors of environment, depending on the building environment, building material, whatever the range it is having, that means within this range these devices can easily do the communication with this router. Now if they go outside of this range, then they are not able to communicate, they are not able to connect this AP. So this is what this infrastructure, this mode is what It is infrastructure mode, which uses the BSS environment, basic service set, and the area which it is covering, it is called BSA. Now this is suitable for the small office network, this is suitable for the small home network, but not suitable for the enterprise network. Why? Because enterprise network can be a very big network. Suppose we are having an office which has 10 floors. Now the wireless AP which we connect on the first floor cannot give the access to second, third, fourth and 10th floor. So it is very difficult for this single AP to give a connection to multiple floors. Just like suppose you are going to a hotel. So you log into the hotel, they will give you like free Wi-Fi. So they give you the name and password. You connect on the reception. Then till you roam around everywhere in the hotel room, you will still find the same Wi-Fi connected. You will not feel like it is disconnecting or what. So that is what, in that kind of environment where you have users which is roaming around the different areas, this is good for the devices or the devices which is not roaming. They are living into the same office. They are not moving these PCs. These are like desktops. These are not moving. They remain in that desk. They will not move. So this BSS environment is good for this single area and single like we can say fixed range. But in case if we have the area, if we have to cover the large area, then we can use that ESS environment. For example, we have big area like this is first floor, this is second floor, this is third floor, and this is fourth floor. Now first floor router AP's network coverage cannot go to the second floor, third will not reach to the second, will not reach to third, third will not reach to fourth. So what we do, we use different APs on each floor. Now the problem, if I use BSS environment here, then I will face the problem. What is the problem I will face? First, this AP will have a unique BSS ID, that is the MAC address. Then this AP will also have the unique BSS ID, that is the MAC address, and that has to be different so that they can differentiate, the users, the clients devices can differentiate that this is the other AP and this is the other AP. So when client sends the request or reply, then it uses the MAC address of this AP. That is what BSS ID. So BSS ID is important to do the communication, because you remember in LAN network the communication will happen on the MAC address. So if device wants to send the data to the AP, then it sends on that BSS ID MAC address. Now AP, ESS ID. ESS ID is the name of that routing, name of that AP. So suppose this first floor AP name, if I use BSS environment, so every AP will have the different ESS ID. Suppose this one, first floor ESS ID is 1, second floor's ESS ID is 2, third floor's ESS ID is 3, fourth floor's ESS ID is 4. Now what happens if the user is on first floor? So it will see this ESS ID, it will connect this. Now how the user connects, that is also important. So if suppose this user wants to connect, remember, let's say it is open access, we have not configured the password, we have not enabled the security. So what happened when this client, this device try to access, try to check what are the available APs or available wireless APs I have in our coverage area. So it will see all the names and it will see the name for this AP also. Let's say this AP name is S. So it will see that name here, just like we saw here in our laptop. So what it will do, it will select that AP that I want to connect this AP. So what this device will do, it will send the request. Remember, there is no wire here. So it will send the request, and request will go to everywhere within the range of your wireless device, and it will go to everywhere. It will go to everywhere, and it will reach to other APs also within the range. If suppose you are having someone is also having the AP here, and it comes under this device range, maybe it is having different ESSID, BSSID, that means the name is different and MAC address is different. But it will do what? When this user wants to connect this AP, so it will send the request on this ESSID. It will send that I want to connect to this ESSID. So in the request packet which is sent, it goes to everywhere, this side, this side, this side, everywhere. But in the packet, request packet, it uses this ESSID. So it will reach, the request will reach to other APs also. This AP, maybe on this AP, but they will not accept the request. Who will accept the request? Only this AP, because this AP has the name S, ESSID as a S. So it will reply with the access. It says yes, you can connect, and this is my MAC address. So whenever you do the communication, so it do the communication based on the ESSID and BSSID. Now in this mode, what happens if this user wants to connect? So it will use to click on this name, and it will connect to this AP. Now when the user roams and it goes to second floor, now because it was connected to this ESSID, when it reaches to the second floor, here the ESSID is different. Now what? It will disconnect again, and it has to connect again manually to this ESSID. Then when it reaches to the third floor, then again it will disconnect, and it has to reconnect the device to this ESSID. Then when it reaches to the fourth floor, then again it has to connect to this ESSID. So, and because the BSS uses the BSA, so basic service area is what? The only first floor. So it will get range only on first floor, not get on the second floor. So it is not good for the user. It is not good for the user that every time it has to be connect. Every user is not that smart that they do connection every time. So for this kind of environment where we have to use the same wireless network for provide the network to all the floors or in a large area, then we use what? ESS environment. So in ESS environment, extended service set, what we will do? We will do what? We will use different multiple APs. These are different. Now because they are different APs, their BSS ID will be different. Their MAC addresses will be different. But they will use the same ESS ID. So we will configure the same ESS ID. That means the ESS ID, let's say I configure the ESS ID S. So it will remain same on all the APs within this ESS environment. So now the BSA like coverage area for one single router is this, other router is this, other router is this, and this router is this. But when we use the ESS environment, then what we are using? Combine all these routers, all these APs, then the combined range of all these APs will be called ESA, that is extended service area. And that means when these users will roam around from one AP range to other AP range, they will not see the difference. They will not have to connect every time, because they will remain in the single ESA. So they will feel like it is the same network we are in and we are connected with the same network. So they will not feel that they have disconnected from one AP and connect it to the other AP automatically. And for doing that, we have to have at least crossing of this BSA of 20%. That means we need to put the APs at least in that distance that they can overlap on coverage area of 20%. That means BSA of one AP to the BSA of other AP should be intersect at least 20%, so that when the user moves from one AP BSA like basic service area to other basic service area, they will not see the difference. They will not feel like they are disconnected and connected to other AP. So BSA is the area of the single router, single AP, and if you use only single, then it is what BSS environment. And if you combine multiple BSAs and create a single large area, so it is called BESA, which is the environment is what ESS. So this is what it means: BSS and BSA, ESS and ESA. Then securing wireless network. Now I have told you that this is what open network. Open network, that means when you connect the open network, you don't have to have any security features. You just select the AP which you want to connect. So you just select the ESS ID of that network, the name of that network, and your request will go to that router, that AP with that name, and it will accept the request if the ESS ID is matched, and then it will allow the access. That is what open network. But for securing the network, we have other protocols, other methods also. So for WLAN, for the wireless LANs, we require new protocols and standard to handle the security for radio communication. And as it stands today, wireless communication represents a significant security concern, and you should be aware of a few wireless security standards when working with wireless, and including wired equivalent privacy, that is called WEP, and Wi-Fi protected access, that is called WEA. So we have these two standards available which we can use, but why WEP is not used nowadays? Because it is the old one and it is not that secure. It is actually very unsecure. But this is the first one we have. This is called wired equivalent privacy. So wired equivalent privacy was the first attempt to keep the wireless network safe, and WEP was designed to be easy to configure and implement, and it was very easy to design and implement and configure, and that is why it was not secure. So originally it was hoped that WEP would provide the same level of security to wireless network as was available to wired. For a time, it was the best and only option for securing wireless networks. But WEP is an IEEE standard introduced in 1997 designed to secure 802.11 network. With WEP enable, each data packet transmitted over the wireless connection would be encrypted, and originally the data packet was combined with the secret 48-bit number key as it passed through an encryption algorithm known as RC4. So it uses this 40-bit secret key with the encryption of RC4. The packet was scrambled and sent across the airwaves. On the receiving end, the data packet passes through the RC4 backward, and the host receives the data as it was intended. So encrypted the data and the sending side with using the RC4 algorithm, and the receiving side it will reverse the encryption and give the data to the receiver. Now WEP originally used a 40-bit number key, but later it specified 128-bit encryption, making WEP that much more robust. But WEP is a protocol designed to provide security by encrypting data from the sending and receiving device in a short period of time. However, it was discovered that WEP encryption was not nearly as secure as hoped. So part of the problem was that when 802.11 standards were being written, security was not the major concern it is today. So in old days there was no security concern, that they feel like there is no required for security, it is not being hacked or whatever, hackers was not there, but now it is very important. And as a result, WEP security was easy to crack with freely available hacking tools. And from this point, wireless communication was regarded as a potentially insecure transmission medium. This WEP you can crack with available free tools, that is available freely. You can crack within 10 seconds. It will not take much time. It will take only within 10 seconds you can crack it. And that is why now we have Wi-Fi protected access, WPA. WPA personal, and we have WPA enterprise also. This WPA personal uses a security weakness associated with the WEP, gave administrator a valid reason to be concerned about the wireless security. So the need for the increased wireless security was important for wireless networking to reach its potential and to rescue those who had sensitive data, that it was safe to use wireless communication. So in response, Wi-Fi protected access was created. This Wi-Fi WPA was designed to improve on the security weakness of WEP and to be backward compatible with older devices that used to use the WEP standard. So this WPA addressed two main security concerns. First, enhanced data encryption. WPA uses the temporal key integrity pact protocol, that is TKIP, which scrambles the encryption key using a hashing algorithm. Remember, RC4 was using only encryption, but it is using what? It is using the hashing algorithm. Hashing cannot be reversed. So then the keys are issued an integrity check to verify that they have not been modified or tampered with during transit. So within the transit, they are not being modified or tampered. It will do what? It will use the integrity check. Then authentication. Using the extensible authentication protocol EAP, WEP regulates access to a wireless network based on a computer's hardware specific MAC address, which is relatively simple to sniffed and stolen. So it is very easy. But here in EAP is built on a more secure public key encryption system to ensure that only authorized network users can access the network. This EAP is actually using Radius servers to do the authentication. It is not authenticated by the router, it is basically authenticated by the Radius server. So it is when it was authenticated by the router, so it can be easily hacked by the hackers by getting the MAC address of the router. Now we have this WPA enterprise version. That was personal, and this is what enterprise. Personal is same as WEP. It uses the shared secret, the password which we can say, to connect the device. But this enterprise uses what? Radius authentication. Radius authentication, that means it is available in WPA 802.1x. This 802.1x is an IEEE standard specified port-based network access control and was not specifically designed for wireless network. Rather, it provides authenticated access for both wired and wireless network. So this 802.1x is actually the Radius server, Radius authentication. This Radius authentication is not designed for wireless. It is designed for wired network, but it can be also used for the wireless networks. Now, this port-based network access control uses the physical characteristic of a switched LAN local area networks infrastructure to authenticate devices attached to a LAN port and to prevent access to that port in case where the authentication process failed. So this 802.1x framework has three main components. One, supplicant, that means the system or node requesting access and authentication to a network resource, that is a client. Then authenticator, That is a control mechanism that allows or denies traffic that wants to pass through a port. Then that is what the router, or we can say the AP. An authentication server, that means this validates the credential of the supplicant that is trying to access the network or resources. That is what our Radius server. So it is like this. So this is what these clients are, is replicant, these are supplicant, this is the authenticator, and this is the authentication server. This is the Radius server. Now configuring your wireless network.